Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be, or good afternoon. I am Professor Hack-Polay from Academia Pro Cristo, and today I'm broadcasting from beautiful Fundy National Park in Alma, in beautiful New Brunswick in Canada. And I'm going to talk about in the next 10 minutes or so about some of the human atrocities that happened and that are worth remembering so that history does not repeat itself. I recently visited Poland, and this is where I managed to visit one of these concentration camps from the Second World War. That's called the Majdanek concentration camp in Lublin, a large city in Poland. So essentially, what I'm talking about here is really to do with human atrocities that have dented, if you want, our major um, life. So therefore, it's worth talking about so that history does not repeat itself, as I said previously. And you can see behind me the beautiful nature that God has given us to enjoy. But unfortunately, human history has been marred by violence, and the Majdanek concentration camp that I'm talking about today is one key example of such violence. There will be some disturbing pictures and also graphic description of what happened, but these are necessary um, teaching so that we can move forward with our civilization in peace and in prosperity for all. I'll show you a PowerPoint on this occasion. Usually, it's a normal discussion that I have with this audience, but today it's a bit of a teaching. So I'll be talking about the concentration camp using some of the graphics. So as we can see here, I'm talking largely about the other side of humanity, which is something that we don't often look at because we tend to look at our achievement in terms of technological invention and social improvement, economic prosperity for usually the few. But the other side of human history is not often looked at. So as a secondary school student, I mean, I've learned a lot to be at this stage of my life. And I learned about those great inventions and technological achievement of our humankind. So, for example, we saw electricity coming up. We also saw the invention of the steam engine, transportation. Today, we can all fly from here to there, from point A to point B, with ease and quick journeys. So these have, as I said, usually to my student, these inventions have helped us to master or to conquer time and space. But we can't limit ourselves to those tremendous achievements of humankind. We also have to look at the other side. And I also learned, as I said, the other side of our human history, which was marked by violence. For example, key happenings such as the wars in Europe, in Africa, or in most part of the world, in Asia, China, and Japan, and so forth. Slavery on the scale never seen before of the Black people to America, for example, the colonial enterprise, where some colonial powers, particularly Western powers, try to get hold of other people's lands in various parts of the world. These are tremendous things that have happened, and they have all often been followed by tragedies and bloodshed and the genocide of several groups in our space. And these are worth talking about. And usually people resist going back and revisit those sites. And I have resisted visiting any of the World War One or World War Two sites because of the emotions that these trigger when you visit those sites. But visiting Poland this year, I've taken my courage in order to enter the arena of those atrocities and those massacres, and to face, as a human being, the disgust and the trauma that this visit will bring. So this year, I therefore, as I said, left everything behind me and went to visit one of his sites. This site in Poland, which is called the Kiel concentration camp in Lublin, in Majdanek, is one of the less known sites because we all know, I mean, most people know about Auschwitz and have major Nazi concentration camps, but the one in Lublin is lesser spoken of. So that's why I have decided to talk about this painful legacy of our human history. So one of the latest genocide of humanity we will remember is the Second World War, where over 30 million people lost their life across the world, and particularly 6 million Jewish people were slaughtered in Europe. And the Kiel, or concentration lager camp in Lublin, is one of the reminders of the dark side of human history. So what happened? Let's go graphically in some of these things. So here is the entrance to what is now a museum in Majdanek in Lublin, which was formerly the site of the Kiel concentration camp. It's a very somber picture. So at Majdanek Kiel concentration camp, these are brief figures. I mean, the whole spectrum of what happened cannot be told with a completeness, if you want. So, as a recap, we can see that 150,000 people were interned in Majdanek concentration camp, and of those, 80,000 were murdered, were slaughtered. And usually they were transported in train from a part of Germany into that site with a promise that they were being taken to safety because of the atrocity happening around their place. So children and women and men were incarcerated in unthinkable conditions. And before they start their journey to face their death, they were shaven and deprived of all dignity. And they were also sprayed then with toxic substances, gases, in order to terminate their lives. So after they have died, the bodies of the victims were searched for valuable things like golden tooth and silver teeth and whatever valuable gold that they have on them. And after that, their bodies were cremated. This is gruesome. Yeah, and I saw for myself, and you see some more pictures that I have taken from the camp. So here we can see this dark room is one of the chambers where the victims were kept before they were gassed to death. You can see in the background the steel door, a very heavy steel door, the lack of lighting, and the gruesome, if you want, state of this room where hundreds of people were kept before they were taken to their death. And here you can see again another gruesome picture where we have here a crate that contains tens of thousands of the shoes of the victims before they were taken to the gas chambers to be gassed to death. So these facts are tremendous. And as I walk through those death chambers, as I call them, my mind couldn't uh, uh, stop thinking and interrogating itself as to how could this happen. So there were tens of thousands of victims' shoes, as I said before, in those crates, and the clothing were also taken. And from the inscriptions I read there, the hair was shaven in order to be taken back to make have commodities such as asphalt and things like that. So the photograph of the chambers of the crowded people awaiting slaughter have been shown, and that was mind-blowing for me, for somebody who's never been to this site. And all I could ask myself is how on earth somebody could think about engineering such um, um, atrocities. And on this picture here, you can see the horrifying sight of a crematorium where, after victims have been killed, they were taken to be cremated, and their bodies, the ashes were used later on to fertilize um, crops that were used to feed the soldiers that were tasked with these gruesome um, um, activities. So a key question, as I said before, that was running through my head and it was mind-blowing was how, therefore, we can do this to ourselves, to our own humanity. I could not find answers at all in our rationality. So therefore, I turn into um, um, God and religion to try to find some answers. And I could therefore remember from a biblical inscription that evil has penetrated our humanity, our perfect humanity that God has created and so forth. So this infiltration of evil has continued to follow us through human history to a point that at some point we came to close to self-destruction with all these world wars that we had and the genocide that we had. I mean, we are talking now about the genocide of the Second World War, but we should not ignore and forget also the genocide in Rwanda and in Darfur, in Sudan, and in many other places that have since followed. So this visit of me led me to revisit again, if you want, in my mind, those biblical principles that, yeah, I know, I've learned and I know that God is love, and we therefore have to love God with all our heart and love our neighbor like ourselves. And these are biblical principles, and there's no wonder why Jesus Christ himself, that the Christian hold for Savior, has reasserted those same words and asserted them as an important commandment. And if only our humanity, as we are, we could listen to those words, those wise words, and try to uh, uh, embed them in our education system, in our political systems, and also try to live by those words, I'm sure we'll come to closer to a more equitable world where people can live in peace and love with one another. So this is where, for me, we professors and teachers have a critical role to play because the younger generations must remember these things. They must remember them so that they don't repeat the mistakes and the atrocities of the past, so that we can finally arrive at a truly civilized humanity. So, as I said before, its violent history does not need to be repeated, and Auschwitz or Kiel in Poland must not be repeated. And for this to be avoided, as we said, we have to come to a point where we have our young people being taught and being reminded of the consequences of um, our evil actions. And we should therefore be working together in order to come to a point where everyone benefits from this beautiful world that God has created. I mean, look at behind me. This scenery in Fundy National Park in Canada is extraordinary. And this is what we're meant to do, to enjoy every piece of this earth that God has created. So therefore, our younger generation need to be taught so that this is not repeated. Thank you, and I'll see you again next week on our broadcast. This is Professor G. Hack-Polay from Academia Pro Christo. Thank you.